All right. Dieter, no Hutch. Emergency stream. Christian McCaffrey questionable for Sunday's 49ers Seahawks season opener. And let's just get down to brass tacks. Kyle Shanahan, very cagey at the dais today. Very standoffish regarding questions about Christian McCaffrey and his injured calf. Here's what we know. Here's what he said. Calf injury happened in Wednesday's practice, and he did not practice. I'm sorry, in Thursday's practice, and he did not practice today, being Friday. It's supposed to be my day off. Apparently, it was Christian McCaffrey's day off as well. What does this all mean? Legitimately, I don't believe this to be the case, but it has to be presented as a possibility. It can mean nothing. Christian McCaffrey plays. Christian McCaffrey's fine. Everything's hunky-dory, and we do this cycle week after week after week after week this season. So that would be annoying, but if he plays, we'll get used to it. If he doesn't play, that's a big issue. I mean, I know I'm underselling that a bit. That's kind of a fundamental problem for the San Francisco 49ers going into a game against the Seattle Seahawks on Sunday. Not only is he their best offensive player, and with apologies to Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey is their best offensive player at this juncture. He is also foundational to their offense. This is the reason why he does not come off the field. What Kyle Shanahan wants to do in his offense is break rules. He wants to go and look at that defense and say, what are you not good at? What is it you're teaching your guys to do? I want to expose both of those things as fraudulent. Early in Shanahan's career, let's just go back to 2019, the first year they really had success, Deebo Samuel, amongst so many others, was the guy who really broke the rules of the defense in the most efficient manner possible. You motion him into the backfield. Congratulations. Now we're going to use him as a running back. And Deebo as a rookie was not as heavily used as he was certainly in 21. But Deebo as a rookie was still an option out of the backfield. He was an option in the slot. He was an option out wide. And in doing that, he constantly put the defense in conflict with what it was they were being taught and what it was they can do. 2021 is the perfect example of this. But things started to fade. 22. And teams started to figure out, well, actually, Deebo doesn't put us in that much conflict because we're just going to press him man to man. And he can't do anything against it. There was still the motioning into the backfield and all of the cool stuff that we saw with Deebo Samuel. And that, of course, diminished as Deebo's game diminished because of the hard miles that he had put on, specifically in the 21 season. So they went out and they traded for Christian McCaffrey. He's kind of an inverse Deebo Samuel. He starts in the backfield, an elite running back. Now he motions out. And now guess what? You were in base to stop the run. Now you're too light. We're going to hit you in the pass game. Good luck covering him with a linebacker. Good luck stopping him in the run game with a nickel on the field. You could put a corner on him. It's not going to do much for you as a defense because, well, yeah, it might stop Christian McCaffrey as a receiver. You just left somebody else open. So that's the 49ers offense to a T. Conflict creators. And if one guy can create that serious conflict and put the defense in a reaction position as opposed to an aggression position, everybody else can thrive. We saw what it looked like last year when the 49ers didn't have one of those guys on the field. Deebo was beyond that. They tried. Damn, did they try. He was beyond that. Christian McCaffrey didn't play. There was no conflict. And even when he did play, because he was so limited foot speed-wise, he was 3, 4, 5 miles per hour slower consistently. It didn't really force the defense to adjust. Didn't force them into conflict. So there's a million different ways we can go off of this. Again, the first option, everything is fine. I mean, not fine in the truest sense. You'd prefer not to be having an emergency stream on a Friday. But everything is fine in the sense of, hey, it's just a thing. He'll play. We'll be doing this week after week after week, but just an annoyance. That's one option. Again, I don't think that is what is happening here. What it sounds to me is that this calf injury, which we need to be clear here, we need to reestablish, no one ever said went away. He had bilateral Achilles tendonitis last year. Okay. That wasn't what knocked him out of the season. What knocked him out of the season was a PCL injury sustained in the snow in Buffalo. And the season was over, so why bother playing him anymore? The bilateral Achilles tendonitis, they kept saying in the preseason, like, oh, it got better. Oh, that will go away. No, it doesn't. I'm no doctor, but tendonitis seems like a thing that doesn't heal itself. It doesn't just go away. It can be minimized. It can be reduced to the point of not being detectable, but it doesn't just go away. It's tendonitis. Kyle Shanahan, by the way, called it arthritis accidentally in a presser on Wednesday. Maybe he was right. So this idea that Christian McCaffrey's calves were just going to be A-OK in perpetuity was fanciful to begin with. Just ridiculous notion. Like, hey, you know how that guy had an injury that required him to get on a plane midseason and go to Germany to get platelet-rich plasma injected into it? Like, that's never going to be a thing again. Come on now. We're naive inherently, but we're not that naive. So the idea that this was never going to pop up again is ridiculous. The timing couldn't be worse, but the idea that this was never going to pop up again was totally ridiculous. And for it to pop up before week one, I said the timing couldn't be worse. Here's why. The scheme that the Seahawks are going to run defensively will probably be as basic as they'll be all year. It is still, and here we're going back to the phrasing again, putting the 49ers in conflict. This is the kind of scheme that's created to turn the tables on a Shanahan-like, or specifically in this case, a Shanahan offense. There's a reason that Arizona hired Jonathan Gannon. There's a reason that Seattle hired Mike McDonald. You have to beat Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan in your division. We're going to hire defensive guys, and I would argue two of the best. Vic Fangio is an elite defensive coordinator. Vic Fangio, you're running cover 6. You're running cover 8. You know what Vic Fangio is about. In Gannon and McDonald, you're running, and by the way, Brian Flores, great defensive coordinator, but it's a pretty simple scheme. It's hard to read and react to on the field, but they're just playing palms and quarters, alternating in perpetuity. The Seattle defense could be anything. The Arizona defense, when Budda Baker's on the field, can be anything. And those defenses, by putting 6, 7, 8 guys across the line of scrimmage, take away outside zone, something that both McVay and Shanahan have been noticing. And McVay's, I think Chris Shula, it might have even been, who was the defensive coordinator before that? I'm talking like 22. The Rams started putting 5 guys on the defensive line in a straight 5-2 set against outside zone. And it really gave the 49ers some problems. By the way, don't be shocked if you see Robert Saleh do that on Sunday, because the Seahawks are going to be running the ball, and they're going to be running out of a basic Kubiak offense. We're going to go down to brass tacks, back to 22 here. But when you put 5, 6, 7 guys across the line, it takes away outside zone. It reestablishes the gaps. Now, not all of those guys have to come in the pass game. Pardon the phrasing there. You can rush 2 and drop 5 off of those on top of the 6 or whatever you have behind it. It is built to stop the outside zone run, force you into gap schemes and interior runs, which the 49ers offensive line, I don't think, is particularly skilled at doing. And 2, because they built the offensive line across an outside zone scheme. So like they went for guys who were a bit undervalued, not in the case of Trent Williams, but guys who were a bit undervalued but fit the scheme well. Well, now that scheme is not going to be as viable because you have basically just a wall up front, and it's man-to-man in all likelihood. So they'll just notice. You're going to run the ball? Cool. We're coming. So it's that. And then on the passing game aspect of things, it is putting the 49ers in conflict. Why? And I just talked about this with my man, Jason Aponte. Brock Purdy has not in the past, and to my knowledge, this has not changed, been allowed to change protections at the line of scrimmage. Okay. The answer is in the play. That's the catchphrase. The answer is in the play. So when you bring a blitz, bring more than what was expected, be that 5, 6, 7, 8, you throw hot. There is an answer in the play. So you don't slide the protections or change the protections. You just do the checklist of what's next. You throw hot. And we see why Baltimore had such success in 2023, why the Vikings have had such success against Brock Purdy year after year, and why I think that Seattle and Arizona, who are both going to force the 49ers to throw hot a lot moving forward, are going to have success against them, unless Brock makes MVP caliber plays. And his playmakers, Deebo Samuel was the perfect option against this, because if you throw hot, typically it's just a quick dig into the middle, quick slant. Well, okay, it's not that cool of a play unless you break 3 or 4 tackles. And now it's an awesome play. And how many times do we see that with prime Deebo? The other thing that you could do against that, and I believe the hot route typically, and last year it turned into Juwan Jennings just being force-fed the ball. But ideally, if you don't have that Deebo, what you would do is a little swing pass to Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield. Or you get the ball to McCaffrey on the perimeter, and now it's effectively a screen play where McCaffrey's going one-on-one against corners, and you have good blocking wide receivers that can clear the lane for him. You can't do that with Brian Robinson. You can't do it with Brian Robinson. I don't think you can do it with Isaac Guerendo because they don't trust him to hold on to the ball, though he'd be a better option in this case. And I definitely don't think Jordan James is playing, but if he could, maybe, I don't know. I don't know what Jordan James is. So Christian McCaffrey was the answer to the main question that the Seattle defense was going to be authoring this weekend. It is what they have been preparing for months. I know that the game plan doesn't go in until Sunday, Monday this week, but it has been built for months. It is the first game on the schedule. You can't help but think about it in the preceding days before training camp, OTA, whenever that schedule came out. And by the way, the teams have it way before the rest of us do. You just think about it. You think about ways to do it. Robert Saleh's in training camp putting together 5-man fronts. You think that's just for fun, or do you think that's because he knows Seattle's coming and they're running outside zone? The answer to the question was McCaffrey. If you don't have McCaffrey, you are now trying to find the answers to the questions with personnel that you do not know and do not trust, and frankly, might not be equipped to handle what is being thrown their way. I think Ricky Pearsall could have a monster year. I'm predicting him to go for 1,200 yards. This is not the game for Ricky Pearsall. He might have to be, but you have Witherspoon, Woolen, and you want him on the outside as opposed to the inside, where the inside is typically the hot throw. You don't have an option to catch the ball out of the backfield. Brian Robinson can catch the ball. He doesn't have bad hands, but he's not shifty in space. He can run over a corner, but that's only going to slow him down to allow a gang tackle to come up from behind him. And you can't really move him around the formation, because I saw Washington try to do that last year. And the only time that he had a good play was when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers decided we're just not going to cover him. They forgot to cover him. Otherwise, when you move him around the formation, he just looked lost. So not only is he new and doesn't know the playbook yet, but also you really shouldn't do it. That's the reason Washington traded him. And I've got that on pretty good authority these days. So I've been asking around. Why'd they get rid of him? It's such a weird thing, right? I'm not the highest guy on him, but it is weird. Why are you trading him now? I know that you probably weren't going to re-sign him. He was going to ask for more money. Okay, getting out ahead, but do it halfway through the season when someone else establishes themselves. It seems a little strange. There's a little more desperation in the market, right? No, the reason was he couldn't get extra yards despite having Jaden Daniels in the backfield with him. And then, ultimately, when you did move him around in the passing game and try to do some of these things that put defenses in conflicts, well, he just couldn't do it. So they're looking at the season and go, okay, what is it you're bringing to us? And can we get something, is that something that someone else can provide us on the cheap and we can get out ahead of this thing? Sure. And you know what? We'll eat a little bit of money if we have to make it happen. Let's go into the comments here for a second. This is an interesting thought. J90 or J49. Juice can catch it out of the backfield. He can. The problem is that Juice doesn't create the personnel mismatch. If you have Juice on the field, you're in 21 or 22 personnel. So you're in a heavy set, right? And the defense is going to match. They're going to match weight with weight. If you're in 21 personnel, that's cool. And there is some tactical advantage to that, but it is not as extreme on the mismatches as it is with a Christian McCaffrey. If you're using Christian McCaffrey as sort of this chess piece, if you're using Kyle Juszczyk as the chess piece, okay, well, now you have a linebacker against Kyle Juszczyk or you have a safety against Kyle Juszczyk. Do you like either of those matchups? I mean, really, where Kyle Juszczyk does his work is when you forget about him. When he pretends to block, you've committed to the run game, and then he slips out. Kyle Juszczyk isn't making one-on-one plays. Christian McCaffrey is, right? Christian McCaffrey doesn't need to get lost in space. Christian McCaffrey creates the space. So that's the big difference. And this is, again, why this is fundamentally problematic, because the worst possible team to not have Christian McCaffrey against is a team that is going to counter conflict with conflict. So you need those great chess pieces on the field. And so really the only thing that would make me feel great or make me feel really confident in the Niners going into this game, and I already picked the Seahawks, would be if I had some intel that Brock Purdy is allowed to change protections at the line of scrimmage. So at least he has a little bit more control over what he's looking at, right? Because when you deal with these chaos defenses, these conflict defenses, what the defense is now forcing the offense to do is make quick, precise, accurate decisions, right? You're throwing hot. You're going one read. You have to read that perfectly every time. This is why he's had so much trouble with Minnesota. They're just alternating palms and quarters. But now, because we're bringing the heat, and the heat is not being blocked because you're not allowed to bring somebody over and block that guy if you're the quarterback. Because sure, you might have slid the protection left if you're Jake Brendel, but that doesn't change anything. It's just a directional thing. The heat's still coming. Because you're not allowed to audible, you can only check. Big difference. Audible is a new play. A check is a play that's already been given to everybody. So it's one or the other. It's a binary situation, whereas an audible is a completely new play, maybe out of the same set, maybe differently. I mean, it'd be the same personnel, but you can change formation. You can move stuff around. You're only allowed to check. There's an issue with Kyle Shanahan getting in play calls very late. This is something that Matt Ryan had a huge issue with and never really resolved itself because Kyle has very verbose play calls. By the way, something that Sean McVay has completely changed. Very verbose play calls, and he's giving you two. So by the time you get to the line of scrimmage, you don't really have that much time to do all of the adjustments that like you and I would do if we were playing college football or Madden on the PS5, right? You know, hot route this. So what you're forcing Brock Purdy to do is you're throwing hot often, consistently, like way too much. And Minnesota would be like, hope you guessed right. Is it going to be palms or is it going to be quarters? Palms, lay flat, basically cover two. Quarters, way back. Am I going deep or am I staying short? Hope you read it right, because if you don't read it right, we're picking you off. And yeah, maybe you burn us once or twice, but we're going to burn you way more. And it only takes us once or twice, whereas opposed to it takes you 10, 11, 12 times to get it right in a row in order for this to work. It is a dangerous ball game. It's a dangerous ball game. And it puts a lot of onus, I mean, not just on Brock, not just on Pearsall, not just all of those things are inherent. But a viable counter to all of this, and forgive me, I'm just spiraling mentally because I too have been thinking about this game for months. The counter to all this is you run a lot of gap stuff. You run it on the interior and you run it with moving offensive linemen. And it will sometimes look awful, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it's going to bust a huge one. Again, my phrasing today is out of control. Can you do that right now with this 49ers offensive line? like, yeah, they're going to do a lot of wham blocks and they're going to have a lot of 12 personnel to try to counter the width of the defensive line and all that. But can you actually move people on the interior? I think Dominic Pooney's a wonderful player, but the book got out on him a little bit last year. And we didn't notice it because everything else was on fire. He's also going to be wearing a knee brace for this game. Jake Brendel doesn't have an anchor. It usually takes him 6-7 weeks to even find his adequate self. And he's going to be spending a whole lot of time thinking about whatever's going on in front of him because he's going to have to be sliding protections left, right, front, and center. He's not. There's no answer to it, but at least he's the one required to do it. And then Ben Bartch is out there, and I think Ben Bartch is actually really, really good. I think Ben Bartch, before his elbow injury, could have been like the sleeper for the season. But in that, he does have an elbow injury. He does have a brace on his elbow. And he's going up against a defensive line that is, let's just call it thick. I mean, this is so it's not really a 1-for-1 with Minnesota. It's not really a 1-for-1, though it's a little bit closer to what Mike McDonald had done in Baltimore. They're going Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, and Jaron Reed up front. Whew, those are some big boys. And then you're bringing linebackers in. That's C, B, A, B, C covered. They're covered. And the game for Kyle in this one, and I thought the opportunity for the 49ers was those linebackers, they can only go straight. They're just filling gaps. That makes them very susceptible in the pass game. But if you don't have that agent of conflict on your offense, you're predictable. And if you're predictable, those linebackers can better situate themselves to protect against the pass. I mean, I still think Kittle is going to have a big game. I don't think there's an alternative here. I still think Pearsall is going to have to be a primary option, and maybe he can prove me wrong. I mean, no one has been higher on Pearsall, and even I'm like, whoa, we gotta pull this back a little bit. It is going to be absolutely fascinating to see, and it is. Listen, this is why you get the money, Brock Purdy. This is why Kyle Shanahan gets the money. They are now tied at the hip. It would be nice if Kyle would put some more trust in his quarterback, who absolutely has the acuity to handle this. This is when you would really need it. I'm not sure if they're going to let him have it. It was, as Benali, a great commentator, says, a very bizarre Kyle Shanahan press conference. I'd be acting like that too if I had to toss out months worth of work. I mean, is that a fair read? Is that a fair read on the situation? That Kyle's like, couldn't even get to week 1. We had all this other nonsense happening. Didn't know who our receivers were going to be. Had to deal with this Juwan Jennings bullshit. But at least we had Christian McCaffrey healthy. At least we had the ultimate chess piece. And it was actually, I was pretty excited. I was going to have some fun moving him around, getting him healthy again. Because when Christian McCaffrey is healthy and playing in my offense, he should win the MVP award. And now here we are, and he probably won't even have him. And I mean, even if he does take the field on Sunday, which I would not rule out in the least bit, what are you expecting? Now, every time he is on the field for a snap, you're just holding your breath, wondering if that's going to be the fateful play where something horrendous happens. This is bad enough, but horrendous is on the table. It's a calf injury. We talked about it ad nauseum with Juwan Jennings this offseason. Give me a second here to go through the comments. Yeah, Seattle will run the same offense. So it's an interesting thing. I was just talking to Jason Aponte. Recommend you guys go watch that channel and whatever I just said. If you haven't gotten enough of me already, Jesus. So the McDonald Shanahan dynamic, fascinating. I'm not as intrigued by the Saleh Kubiak matchup because intrinsically, I don't think that either of those guys are in a position to get weird with it, right? Like a 5-man front is not that. It's going to look weird to us off of the last 2 years, because no one has actually been coordinating the defense, especially last year. So, like, it's like, whoa, this is some galaxy brain stuff. They put another guy on the defensive line. This is kind of basic shit. And I'm sure Kubiak will have a couple things that, for Seattle fans, they're going to be like, what the hell is this? It's basic shit, right? This is the NFL. The problem is that both of these teams had coordinators who were not NFL caliber coaches, much less coordinators last year, right? You had Ryan Grubb, who did a legitimately wonderful job with the Washington Huskies offense when Michael Penix took them to the national championship game. Did a really good job there. Comes to the NFL level and is just drowning immediately. And think about the game that the Niners lost to the Seahawks last year. Like, was it Ryan Grubb or was it Geno running the football? Something that you don't say normally. I'm pretty sure it was the latter. Why? Because the game plan sucked and Geno had to take matters into his own hands, which, to his credit, he did. Meanwhile, Robert Saleh is going to be starting's a loose word, but he's going to be heavily relying upon 5 rookies minimum on Sunday. You think he can get weird with 5 rookies? Maybe those guys and their skill sets allow him to look good, but like they have to establish a foundation in week 1 and build from there. So all the cool, weird stuff that might show up, probably not because it's Robert Saleh. He's a pretty basic guy. He's about the Joes, not the X's and O's. And he's right about that on defense in a lot of cases. Robert Saleh is more about, kind of the master motivator, not the master tactician. McDonald is the master tactician, maybe not as much the motivator. It's going to be pretty basic on that side. Now, can the Niners stop the run? I don't know. Can the Seahawks actually run it against theoretically NFL caliber defense, which they did not see this preseason? I don't know. It's a young, inexperienced offensive line on the interior for Seattle. That will be an interesting thing to watch against a young, inexperienced defensive line for the 49ers. We could see some flash, for sure. Both sides. Gray Zabel, Mykel Williams, you're going to have your moments. I'm not as excited about that. I was really excited, and I still am because I'm a dork, about Shanahan versus McDonald. Like, this is an ultimate boss battle. The thumbnail for Jake and I's Thursday show was Masterminds. I hold these two gentlemen in the highest esteem as play callers. When we talk about what it is they do on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, when they put together a game plan, nobody does it better on their sides of the ball than those guys. Now, I can't speak to McDonald to the depth that I can speak about Shanahan. Shanahan's issue is adaptation. When things aren't going the way that he expected them to, and he, like me, though in a completely different way, because I'm just a lunatic man, and he's actually using his knowledge for something very fruitful fiscally for him and fruitful to Niners fans in the good years. When things don't go according to the plan, and you talk to any player, you talk to any coach with him, he has every possibility gamed out, except for the ones that seem to show up on Sunday often. And when those show up, the gears get grinded up real fast. And he doesn't have answers, and he gets stubborn, and he force feeds things. And he'll keep running the same shit, hoping it finally breaks through because, well, then I can do this, that, and the other. But I can't change off of that because then I don't know what follows it. He gets very stuck. I can't speak to if McDonald feels the same way, right? Inherently, it doesn't feel like his defense should be that way. But I guess we'll find out on Sunday. We don't have enough of a game plan. I don't have enough of a read because much like with the solid defense this year, right, where it's supposed to just have to get better, you have to build off of the foundation, improve throughout the season. And now at the end of the season, you're kind of fully fledged and you're experimental and you're trying new stuff out because you have your basics, your core stuff established. McDonald did that last year. This is the year where it's supposed to flourish. And there's still progression that's going to happen this year, as there is in all units and all teams. But they're still kind of filling in the gaps. Like Nick Emenwari, I don't expect to be a major player in this game. But come week 18, he could be foundational to the Seattle defense. By the way, a very weird schedule. I know we've mentioned it a million times, but it's a very weird schedule. Alberto, our Seattle's run defense was putrid last year. Look at the stats, and I would recommend you look at the last 5 games of last year. I mean, The stats are factual. They did not figure out who they were as a defense, how to run what Mike Macdonald was asking them to do, for Mike Macdonald to even call the stuff that he wanted to do in Baltimore until late last season. And once they figured out, hey, okay, we got some guys who can set the edge here. We got a guy who can rush the passer here. We got once we got our linebackers, they got their linebacker situation filled out and established, like, Ernest Jones is our guy here. Then things started to come along. It's not to say that you still couldn't run against them. It's just to say that they started actualizing a little bit, and then they started to look more competent. Meanwhile, the Niners, in all likelihood because of injury, but regardless, if we're removing the context of it, couldn't stop the run no matter what, and it only got worse as the season went on. And I can't tell you today that they're going to be any better against stopping the run, or any better in stopping the run than they were last year. Because while they've brought in a bunch of new bodies, do any of those bodies stand out as, oh, this is our go-to run stopper? Much like Pearsall, no one's higher on Mykel Williams than me. And I think that he ultimately will be that guy, albeit at end. And that's going to open up a lot of possibilities for Chris Kasarik and Robert Saleh down the line. But in week one, for him to be that needed, for him to be that necessary, that's a big ask, especially with as little practice as he got. All right. Yeah. Gino limping into the end zone in slow-mo memories. Not good ones. This is how it started last year. Sorry, this is Foot. Good name, Foot. Should change it to Calf. Here all week, folks. This is exactly how it started last year. They said he was good to go, and then he wasn't playing in week one, and 10 weeks later. I mean, this one feels more acute, right? He's practicing, calf tightens up, and now we're in a holding pattern. I'm not sure how long of a holding pattern. It might be a 2-day holding pattern, and he's out on the field on Sunday. He looks like Christian McCaffrey, and everything's hunky-dory. And we just do this week in and week out. He could also be on a plane to Germany right now. I don't know. This is a good point by huge asshole. Good news for the 49ers rookies is that the plays should mostly look familiar. Yes. This is as easy as it will get for them. But ultimately, it's going to come down to your man versus my man. Do the Niners have the guys? And let's just think about this from Clay Kubiak's perspective for just a half second. Okay? Because we know what Robert Saleh's perspective is. It's, I got to keep this simple. I got to keep this straightforward. I got to keep this foundational so my kids stand a chance. I mean, what did Robert say yesterday? He's like, there are going to be some ups and there are going to be some downs. Strap on, get on the roller coaster. Accurate. Brutally honest truth. And you know what? I appreciate him setting those expectations that way. That's where I was at. I'm not just saying that it's a good quote because I agree with it. I'm saying it's good to establish those expectations because you're not going to expect anything else. And now you can't be that angry if it's not working out. There's going to be highs. There's going to be lows. I do think the talent is there. I don't think the talent is ready. I don't know how they could be ready. But yes, it will be a more simplistic game plan. And it should look extremely familiar. If any coaching staff should know how to slow or downright stop this Clint Kubiak offense and Sam Darnold, it's the San Francisco 49ers. It is of them. But let's go at it from Clint Kubiak's perspective for a second. 5 rookies. Marquise Siegel. I expect Upton Stout, though we'll see. And then let's just play the game CJ West, Collins, Mykel Williams. So sometimes football is extremely complicated. I think I've made a decent case for that so far in these 34 minutes. Probably too complicated, unnecessarily complicated. Sometimes it's very simple. And we saw this last year with the 49ers in week 1. Sometimes it's, where's the weak link? Let's just go at him. And last year was pretty straightforward. The 49ers said, oh, Sauce Gardner doesn't tackle? Let's just run at him until Robert Saleh takes him off the field. And by the time Robert Saleh took him off the field last year, the game was over. It wasn't complicated. There's your weak link. We're going to exploit it. This is how defensive line coaches view every game. Where's the weak link on this offensive line? Let's exploit that. If I'm Clint Kubiak, I'm going, okay, where's the weak link? And it is at the alternating spots of nickelback and Sam linebacker. So if the 49ers want to do a five-man front without having 5 defensive linemen on the field, they'll go into a 4-3 over with a base package, right? So that means the Sam linebacker is going to be on the field. Now, the Sam linebacker will be Luke Gifford. I pull back on that a smidge because there is a decent, I talked about this yesterday, a decent undercurrent of people who are reputable who think that Nick Martin starts at Sam. This isn't Larry, me, or talking, and not me. Like, it has popped up more than once, more than 5 times over the last couple of days, and it's popped up enough to where it's like, yeah, okay, there might be, that wouldn't shock me now. So let's just work through those 3 options. If the 49ers come out in nickel, you have Upton Stout or Chase Lucas, but Upton Stout starting at nickel. Aren't you going to run at the guy's 170 pounds again and again and again until he proves that you shouldn't run at him anymore? Sometimes it's very complicated. Sometimes it's simple. If the 49ers are out there in a base 4-3 over, putting that extra guy on the line, aren't you going to pass it to your tight end in the flat again and again and again until Luke Gifford shows that he can cover? I would. Sometimes it's pretty simple. And if you have Nick Martin in that spot, aren't you going to run at him again and again and again until he proves that he has the strength to actually hold an edge? That's what I would do. Sometimes it's pretty simple. This is the problem with playing rookies. This is the problem with playing bit players in what could be significant roles. This is what Kyle Shanahan taught Clint Kubiak how to do. Where's the weak link? Exploit. He doesn't even need to get into the rules and put players in conflict. He can just exploit. Now, it's easier said than done when we're talking about safeties and how they integrate into all of it. That's when the rules come into play. So, I mean, this is a notion that has been thrown around that CMC is actually 100%, and they're doing this to throw Seattle off the scent. Maybe. Probably not. Niners have lied on injury reports before. It's usually the other way. It's usually the other way. I'm not sure they're interested in opening themselves up to the susceptibility of the flip, but maybe that's actually a loophole in the system. We'll see. We'll see. I'll tell you the second. I think it's going to be Pinnock and Siegel. That's who I think it's going to be. I think that there's every indication that will be it. Now, wouldn't surprise me if they started Jair Brown for a snap or two and then took him off the field. Not even because he was involved in anything, but that would be the sort of, you're thinking one thing, here's another. The sort of unnecessary key dangle for a green offensive coordinator, who, by the way, was the offensive coordinator of the Saints last year. There's a million ways this can go. If McCaffrey plays and looks like McCaffrey, the Niners have a very interesting offensive game plan. That much has leaked through. And it really does give them a shot against what should be the most vanilla version possible of a chaos defense game plan, which isn't to say that it's not going to be chaotic and challenging and all these things, but it's as straightforward as possible because every defensive coordinator is trying to establish principles in the early season, right? We talk about September all the time as an extension of the preseason. That is the case for all teams who runs their basics the best. Having McCaffrey out there, that's basics for the 49ers. That's tried and true. That's foundational. Not having him out there, now you have a running back who you got 2 weeks ago who can't do the things that Christian McCaffrey does. So there goes that part of the game plan. And you have a wide receiver core, which is looking better, looking way better than it was 2 weeks ago. But how much, I mean, we're not even talking about how much you can get out of Jawan Jennings. I don't know. Not on the injury report, it should be noted. How much are you getting out of Jawan Jennings? How much can you rely on Jawan Jennings? How much can you free up Pearsall from having Witherspoon on him full time? Or having Tariq Woolen just punching him in the gut off the line of scrimmage again and again and again? It's a big question mark. It'll get answered pretty quickly. But I don't think Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDonald, you or I, or even Jawan Jennings knows the answer to that question. And you're just going in with way too much ambiguity when you need decisiveness against a defense that forces you into quick, accurate decisions. That's a dangerous game. Very dangerous game. And if this was in week 7 or week 8, it would be DEFCON 1. But we're only at 2 right now. We're only at 2 because I don't know. I think a lot, I think a lot of people don't like Woolen. I clearly like Woolen way more than most. Either I or the entire world will be right. We'll find out on Sunday. I'm a Woolen guy. How does Garendo fit into this? He should fit into this. In theory, Garendo would be. No one's Christian McCaffrey, but he's a more reasonable facsimile for Christian McCaffrey than a Brian Robinson. There's a reason Brian Robinson's here. They don't trust Garendo at all. And I don't know the bottom path of it's clearly the fumbles. It's clearly the health injury. They can't trust him in that regard. There's got to be something else going on that I haven't been able to see with my own 2 eyes and that hasn't leaked out because it's not enough of a topic that it's leaking out. But I would have to guess that there's stuff behind the scenes that they just don't like about him. And not on a personal level. He, by all accounts, seems like a very upstanding, solid, sharp enough kid. I really worry if he knows the playbook and stuff because they just don't want to put him on the field. McCaffrey, nothing serious I can tell you about. I feel like I said, I feel great about where I'm at. Unfortunately, when you have an injury, like you have to, okay. So if McCaffrey's downplaying it, McCaffrey's downplaying it. He didn't practice today. Okay. Limited's one thing. Guarding him against himself is another thing. All of those things are something that Kyle should have said at the presser. The caginess wasn't, I know something you don't know. The caginess was, I don't know. That's my interpretation on it. It doesn't matter what my interpretation is come Sunday at 1:00. But between now and then, that's my interpretation of it. McCaffrey's going to downplay it, just like he downplayed everything that happened over the last 2 years. Right? Because don't forget, he was banged up going into the Super Bowl as well. Still had a good game. And you're just going to downplay it. No, it's fine. That's fair game. That's the kind of mind games. Oh, do you want to believe Christian McCaffrey? Lying is par for the course in these. Now, maybe Christian McCaffrey's telling the truth. I couldn't tell you, but he downplayed it all last year, so I don't view him as a trustworthy narrator in this topic. And Kyle can be untrustworthy, to say the least. But you know what really rarely lies? Kyle's body language, his energy. And I'm a pretty doom and gloom guy. That doesn't surprise anybody who's watching this right now. Pessimist by nature, optimist by choice, and it takes a whole lot of willpower to get to that optimism for me. This is what happens when you're always thinking about the worst case scenario. Me and Kyle, simpatico on that front. But Kyle, when Kyle is in front of people at the dais, his body language speaks volumes. Kyle's a very good liar when he's on the phone, because then he could just say stuff, right? Then you can't. But he has ticks. He has tells, and I'm not a good enough poker player to be able to discern the exact amount. But kind of the Potter Stewart argument. You know it when you see it. Today was not I'm mixing and Matt. You're never going to figure this out. This is all kind of an elaborate scheme. This was I don't No. And I've seen that a dozen times a year for the last 9 years. There's a big difference between Kyle saying something and on the phone or just in text. And there's a big difference between Kyle at the podium when eyes are on him, and now he's got to lie, and he just it doesn't come off cleanly. I'll leave it at that. So what happened Sunday? You tell me. I mean, you tell me, man. I feel real. I'll cop to this. I feel really bad. I feel really bad for anyone who drafted him in fantasy. Per my advice, by the way, because he looked awesome. He looked so fast in training camp, man. He looked back, right, and it gave this false sense of confidence. And you always knew that this was a possibility, but you're like, oh, down the line, you'll have to deal with it. But by then, maybe Jordan James has come along and Brian Robinson feels a little bit more comfortable in the offense. This couldn't have happened at a worse time. It really couldn't have, because it's just enough time for us to all stew on it and maybe talk ourselves into everything being A-okay, but not enough time to really do anything about it. Perfect. Just absolute perfection. In the worst possible way. The fell for it again award is absolutely the case. And, it's funny, Foot, another great comment. And you can look this up, when they first traded for Christian McCaffrey, right? They were 3-5, 4-4. They were flailing, right? Because the Debo thing had clearly run its course in 23. Oh, by the way, they were on their second quarterback of the year, soon to be 3. One of those worked out. So the whole season was just kind of fucked, to say the least, in 23. Because you have Trey Lance out there. They're trying a new offense. That lasted never showed up because they couldn't run it in the rain in Chicago. And then Trey Lance broke his leg. So now here's Jimmy, who had been practicing on a side field. Don't look over there. That was one of my favorite things. Got yelled at by a PR staff one time when I was just turned around. They're like, don't look over there. Don't want me to look at your $20 million quarterback? Okay. Don't look. He's not there. Visible quarterback. Well, now he was starting, and it just felt like Groundhog Day 2020 all over again. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ, this season. Debo wasn't separating. Debo looked banged up. The game plan was out. And They go and get McCaffrey. And when they traded for McCaffrey, my concern was, oh, great, you just got a guy whose main characteristic's not the right word. The reputation that preceded Christian McCaffrey when the 49ers traded for him was oft injured. Incredible, but oft injured. That didn't feel like the solution for the 49ers at the time. Boy, was I wrong about that one. Until I wasn't. I wasn't wrong. I was just early. Lie I like to tell myself. Hold on here. Yeah, y'all dramatic as hell, CMC. He's dramatic as hell. Practice. We're dramatic. We're responding to your drama of I can't practice this week. If they were really just holding back Christian McCaffrey just to make sure everything was A-okay, it wouldn't read like this on the injury report, and Kyle Shanahan wouldn't be so goddamn cagey at the podium. That's my read on it. Maybe Christian McCaffrey's telling the truth. I know he wasn't for the entirety of last year. This is a great comment. Cam's dad. Maybe Kyle will start with 22 personnel. Can CMC run? What's McDonald's thinking? 22 personnel is a very real possibility for this game in general, regardless of Christian McCaffrey or not. Be a lot better if you had Christian McCaffrey. But 22 personnel feels likely because, again, you don't know what you have at wide receiver, or you're wish casting, really, at wide receiver, where your most reliable guy for week 1 is Ricky Pearsall, who has 2 good NFL games in his career. Again, I love Ricky. I thought he separated consistently upon reaching the field last year. That doesn't mean that he produced for 2 games. That meant nothing, in effect. That Detroit one was pretty good because they play like nothing but man-to-man, and he just absolutely went off. So, like, that was really telling. But, man, you don't know what you got over there. And you're going to be throwing hot a lot. So, going to 22 maybe insulates you a little bit better when it comes to the protection in the pass game, inherently. But it works so much better if Christian McCaffrey's back there because you can throw it to him as opposed to having to get it out and in front, where it's just going to be muddy. It's not clear lanes of vision. And you don't have anybody, Jennings, because he doesn't have the foot speed that Debo had, though he does have the physicality, or Pearsall, who has the shiftiness and the ability to get open, and I do think has underrated open field potential, but it's not Debo Samuel. Yeah, you'd much rather just throw it on a swing pass to McCaffrey, but you can't do that with Brian Robinson. And you can do it with Isaac Guerrero, but is Isaac Guerrero going to pick up that blitz? Even if you're in 22, I don't know. I do think we see a lot of 2 tight end sets just to counteract the width of the Seattle defensive front in general, right? I think this is just going to be the buzzword, not just for the Niners this year, but for the entire NFL. And if it isn't, I mean, I think about last night. They were in Philadelphia was in a ton of 12 personnel. So you can go into 22. Okay, let's see what else we got here. And then I'm going to bounce because I've just been yapping for 50 straight minutes. If it's and this is an advantage of going to 2 tight end sets, it puts Kittle out it puts Kittle out on the routes. Ryu, Ken, have you ever been coached in football? More than you will ever know. What position did you play? Offensive line and some tight end, though the tight end did not work out very well. How do I know so many random things about kickers? Because I ask. Peter Schrager once had a great line when they asked him, because Peter Schrager every year for a long time, and when I used to do NFL draft stuff for Fox Sports, we put out mock drafts, and it's how I got to know a lot of scouts and stuff, and it's been very fruitful. But Peter Schrager would put out, I would put out, a dozen mock drafts leading into the draft, obviously. And Peter Schrager, who was working for us at Fox at the time, would come in, and it pissed me off at the time. I was young and an idiot, and we all got fired anyway. But Schrager had this great line. Sorry, I'm really beating it down here. I'd be pissed because they weren't promoting my mock drafts enough, and I was doing a shit ton of work on them, right? And I was really proud of the stuff that we did. Don't look up what I thought about Mitch Trubisky. And Schrager would come in, and he would do a mock draft, first round only, like the day before. And when you would grade out all these mock drafts, and there's some people that end up doing that at the end of the year, even back in 2017, 2018, he would always get like 90% of them right. And we once said, like, how did you do that? And he goes, oh, it's a little thing called a phone. He would just ask the teams who they were going to take or who they wanted to take. And they'd tell him because he's Peter Schrager. He's a very nice guy. Yeah, how do I know so many things about kickers? I ask. I think about that stuff, and then I text, people in that circle, and it's a pretty tight circle. So that's the answer to most of the questions. How do I know? I ask around, I synthesize, and then I yap, sometimes coherently. This is a great point from Hugh Jassel. Instantly if Pearsall is starting, he's going to be good. If he's going to be a letdown, it's going to be due to his availability. I mean, I absolutely think that he'll be starting, and I absolutely think that he's going to have a big role in this game. The question is, how much will the 49ers offense be able to get him the ball, and what can he do with it? It feels like a lot of this game plan now is going to be overly reliant on Ricky Pearsall to go thermonuclear against a defense where I don't really like the matchup. It's not to say he can't have a good game. It's that I don't love it. There are going to be games down the line where you're like, bank on Pearsall, baby. 150, 160, 170. This game, I mean, if I had to put a player prop on it, which I don't think you're allowed to do with Christian McCaffrey anymore, I would say, in fact, yes, Cam's dad. Some betting lines remove CMC options. I would too. This game, 55, 65 yards, touchdown, half touchdown as the line. You're now overly reliant on what is effectively a rookie wide receiver. Like, he got his cup of coffee. In baseball, they'll call up a guy in like late August, September, and he'll play. They did this with Buster Posey, famously. He'll play the entire month of September, and then the next year he's still a rookie because he didn't reach his limits. That's kind of where Pearsall is right now. Like, yeah, it's his second year, but like, it's his first real year. So your offense is now going to be overly reliant on him. Thank goodness it's going to be really reliant on George Kittle, who's fucking awesome. It's going to be really reliant on the interior of your offensive line to hold up against the beef of Seattle. Question marks there. Get this. Your $50 million quarterback going to have to make some plays. This is the real NFL. But now on the defensive side, you're going to be really reliant on like 5-6 rookies to not just play and give you snaps, but to like make an impact, to have some pop, to look good. When I keep telling y'all that this season was never about this season, this is what I mean. It's not to say that this season can't go well for the San Francisco 49ers. It absolutely can. Like, the peak is they can win 13, 14 games. Might not feel like that right now with this Christian McCaffrey news, but like, that is their peak. Because of the schedule, I roll my eyes at it, but the schedule is a thing. Because of their top-end talent, because of their coaching, which is markedly better than it has been for years, including the year they went to the Super Bowl. Because of all this, because of that, they can put together an NFC Pro Bowl team, in effect, with their offense. Because they have Fred Warner. Because they have two really good corners. And we'll see. I'm still holding out some skepticism on Diamador Lenore as a true outside guy, but he's a hell of a football player. The high end for this team is still very, very high, but this season is about establishing a new foundation for the future. Yeah, you have those top-end guys. Those aren't your foundational players anymore. Those are guys who are around to kick ass, and you're hoping, that's the really fancy furniture. But you have to build a foundation. You might have the house, you got nothing to put it on. And the foundation is the depth of your roster, and that depth is almost entirely comprised of kids. And some of them will hit and be good NFL players. Some of them could be stars. There's enough talent there to say that that's a possibility for sure. Pearsall, Williams, even Collins, you can't rule out. Maybe Martin. He certainly has an incredible skill set. I don't know how it manifests, but the skill set's there. Siegel, like, you have really high-end talent. I think they've drafted well the last 2 years. But there are also going to be guys that just don't make it and aren't getting second NFL contracts or reasonable second NFL contracts. Don't make it to the end of their first. This year is about finding that foundation. You have a house, you got to put it on something. Last year, the house burned down, and they didn't have a foundation. So when I talk about this season not being about this season, yes, so many good things could happen to the 49ers this season. But what has to happen for this team to consistently enter campaigns thinking that they got a shot, which they kind of got artificially this year because of the schedule and because up until maybe Thursday, health of their high-end players. But for them to feel every year like, hey, we got a real shot to go in here in the NFC and do something, you have to build that foundation. And that foundation is all young players. And the danger is the foundation is all young players. Okay. Let's go through a super chat here. Been a crazy football fan since 1993 when I was a little kid last year, and this team generally beat it out of me. Matthew, I'm sorry to hear, legitimately sorry to hear that. I still think we can all maybe, if you're a big Niners fan, this is a good year to maybe take a half step back, to lower expectations, to not maybe tie emotions. And I do this, I'll do this with, let's just use me as the example. I'm the one yapping. So I got 3 teams, right? Worked in a professional realm for long enough that I ended up with 3. I'm a Chicago White Sox fan. I'm a Missouri Tigers football fan and basketball, but mostly football. And I'm a Liverpool fan. Okay. The Liverpool one is just because when you're up at 6 a.m. You got to watch something. I've been doing that my entire life. I'm locked in now. Love it. Great year last year. Looking good this year. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Leave that one aside. Let's talk White Sox. Let's talk Missouri football. So with like the White Sox, when they're good, I'll engage. And when they suck, I won't bother. I'll keep an eye out on it. I'll read, Sox Machine and other things like that. But I'm not emotionally invested in the Chicago White Sox because they'll just beat you into a pulp. They'll let you down. The Missouri Tigers, I'm emotionally invested. Like that, if they lose to Kansas on Saturday, I'm going to be distraught. And if they win, I'm going to be a level of giddy that frankly is going to make you want me to go see a psychiatrist and maybe get some pills to help me out because it's like, whoa, I'm bipolar. Be more White Sox Dieter than Missouri Dieter. This is just life advice, unsolicited life advice. If the team isn't giving you any reason to buy in, don't buy in. Right? So just take it for what they're presenting. And it's so much easier said than done. I know. Take it for what they're presenting and act accordingly. But don't tie your emotions to it because otherwise you end up like Missouri Dieter, and Missouri Dieter ruins Saturdays. Is Dieter a 49ers fan? No, I'm not. Now, I'm fiscally invested in them. I am around them a lot. I am a fan of many things that they do and many players on the team. But no, I'm not a 49ers fan. This is an ego-driven operation. This is because I cover them on a daily basis, because I'm around the team. This is a medium in which I tell you what I'm seeing. Not everyone's going to agree with it. That's fine. I think my track record stands for itself on being more right than wrong and finding things that others haven't noticed and bringing them to the forefront well before they've become a thing. I have been deemed a ball knower by some folks around the NFL, mainly because of my Michael Williams take, and maybe they're just pulling my chain, but I take that as a badge of honor. But no, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. Though kind of secretly, I want them to win, right? But I'm just not going to be, I'm not emotionally invested in their wins and losses. I am a fan of seeing football played at the highest level. And I've been very fortunate covering the 49ers to have seen that. And we're very fortunate to be talking about a team where the standards for success typically, perhaps not this year, but typically are Super Bowl or bust. So I am a fan of football being executed at the highest level, of game plans being as innovative and forward-thinking and progressive as possible. I'm a fan of the game of football. And for a very long period of time, the 49ers were a nexus for the game of football. And they still might be because of Kyle Shanahan. But the personnel as it stands, I'm not quite sure has the ability to maybe reach that level this year. Now, in the future, your bet's as good as mine. I'm feeling actually pretty bullish about the future. Probably not Sunday. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's it. F1 fan. Yeah, you know what, Jay Ford, I was an F1 fan. I got into it the same way that every other asshole got into it over the last 5 years, which is that Netflix series. And I liked Verstappen a lot. And I got into it enough to learn a lot of the history and learn how and Senna was driving very differently than everybody else and all this stuff. And man, I'm such a bandwagon. I'm so out. I'm so out on F1. It kind of just got boring. And I liked it when Verstappen was just crashing into dudes. And also he got exhausting. So it's such a personality driven situation that I can't invest in it. I liked a lot of the tech stuff of it too. And when they changed the cars the last couple of years, a lot of those tech advantages or those seem to went away. A lot of stuff that would have been considered innovation is now considered illegal. And it's like, I'm not in on it. I just want to see stuff getting pushed to the next level again and again and again in all things. And to be fair, in baseball, I was an advocate for that. Now I want to go back. I want baseball to be stupid again because it's really hard. It's really hard to stay up to date on baseball with the numbers on the box score not actually meaning anything to the people who analyze the game. So I want that to be stupid again. And maybe I want football to be stupid again at a certain point. But here we go. Watch the highlights of the Dutch GP. I actually watched a little bit of the Dutch GP, and it was actually a really good race. It absolutely is Piastri's year. And Netflix show. This is a good point by Lee. I've actually been trying to get into NASCAR a little bit this year. I can't get over the hump. I can't get over the hump. Maybe this is the year. Tried to get into IndyCar. My buddy's a big IndyCar guy. Haven't been able to do it. But hey, if the Niners keep trending in this direction, we might have a lot more free time on weekends. Just throwing it out there. Okay, that's that. We'll talk after Sunday's game. I wonder if there'll be anything to talk about. Appreciate everybody hopping in. Emergency stream. 1 hour and 10 minutes of straight Dieter nonsense. If y'all don't appreciate Hutch now, my God, you never will. Hit us up in the comments. Let us know how we all did. Let us know your predictions for the game. Man, it was already interesting. It's going to be even more interesting. Not as interesting as that Dale Earnhardt doc that I started watching. It is good. And we'll talk Sunday after the game. Looking forward to it immensely.